Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Guinea Pigs with Greg. Today we're going to be looking at grooming and preparing your cavies for a show. The cavie in the background belongs to Daniel Bennett of Blue Sack Stud and is a top example of a well-prepared cavie. There are 4 key elements to getting a cavie ready for a show: feeding, breeding, preparation, and finally husbandry. And you need to get all of these correct to make a good cavie, and today we're going to focus on preparation. And the tools we'll be using are a set of nail clippers, obviously for cutting the nails, and then we'll be using a stiff bristle brush. This can be a monofilament brush, something quite hard. As you can see, the bristles are stiff. This is to take away some of the loose hair. We'll be using various types of tweezers of your choice, really. And this will be to do some of the finer detail work and get the coat down to its shortest. You can see we have wider ones and shorter based ones, depending on what suits you, really. And lastly, we'll be using a natural fibre brush. This one is made of goat's hair, to shine the coat and smooth it out and give it a very glossy and healthy finish to the coat. So these are the tools that we'll be using to get our cavies in tip-top show condition with regards to coat preparation and nails. Cutting the cavie's nails is very important. Doing it correctly, you give a very nice finish to the cavie. It's not going to scratch the judge. It's very important that when the cavie does touch the judge's hands, they're not going to get hurt by your guinea pig. So we just trim the very ends of the nails. We don't go too deep because we don't want to make the nail bleed. Show training helps here because the cavie is used to being handled. As you can see, it won't flop around and hurt itself or you. And as you can see, we're just taking the very ends of the nail off. So you can see the nails on the left have been cut and the nails on the right haven't. And you can see it's much cleaner and neater when they've been trimmed. So removing the guard hairs is the first stage in preparing your guinea pig's coat. The guard hairs are the really long excess hairs that the cavie grows in order to keep itself warm and to protect itself. So we need to remove these to get the coat looking fine and shiny before we actually start grooming the next layers of the coat. So you can see these hairs are quite long. I've used a board there to try and highlight just how long they can grow. They're very spiky looking, they're quite coarse. And yeah, so we start off by brushing the coat backwards, and this will release a lot of the loose hair and make the guard hairs stand up so we can actually see them. We do this all over the coat. I call it raking the coat, but other people have different methods. But I find this gets rid of a lot of the loose hair, so it makes it a little bit easier to manage. And once this is done, we use our thumb and fingers to literally pull at the coat. Gently, we're not trying to rip the coat out, we're just trying to tease these guard hairs away from the body. We're not trying to pull them out, we're not trying to rip them out. It's a solid, just running your hands through, raking the coat back and then pulling down on the coat with your fingers and thumb. Just pulling out lots of hair. This can get quite messy. The guinea pigs will often make a little squeak when they first have this done, but because you're not pulling at the coat, it's just they're not used to being handled in this way when you first do it. Boards especially get rather excited when you do this to them. And I work my way from the rump all the way to the neck, just teasing out all of these loose guard hairs until the coat looks a little bit more even. You can see there we've taken the majority of them out, but there's still lots of odd spiky hairs lifted up, which doesn't give an even appearance. So the coat at this point looks a little bit uneven, but you're starting to get a feel for it, and you'll feel the coat become thinner. It'll become loose, it'll lose that thickness to it, and it become much more easy to manage and easier to run a brush through. I start this process about 3 to 4 weeks before a show. because if you do something wrong, it can take the coat a little while to recover. And I'll often do this 3 or 4 times over the course of a week to really get the guard hairs out and give the coat the best possible chance to look its best. I'll often use the brush again just to loosen any more hairs. It's just a good way of doing it, and it keeps the coat in the right direction. Important you go through all of the coat. The head is particularly difficult and can be quite time consuming. Guinea pigs don't like their head being touched at the best of the times. They quite often lift. But if you do it gently, they'll be absolutely fine. And like I say, to win at the top shows, you must be groomed from head to toe. And it's quite important to give the best finish to your cavie, so it does its best for you. And then you should be left with a pile of guard hairs. It's like tumbleweed, it gets everywhere. So yeah, if you should be left with a sizable amount of hair that you've removed from your cavie. And then you know that you're ready basically for the next step, which is evening out of the coat. And what we mean by this is, now we've removed the guard hairs, you're back to the actual coat that you can see. So we groom from the rump working towards the head and the neck, just like we did before, but this time we'll be using tweezers. And this time we are actually pulling the coat out. We're pulling the coat out, we are not cutting the coat. It's very important you do not cut the coat, because that is a disqualification, and it's very easy to see as a judge when a coat has been cut, because it leaves a very blunt edge, a very unnatural looking edge. So we start by holding the coat up with one hand and using the tweezers in the other. And we're literally pulling out the hairs that stand most proud so that we get them all the same length. And there are multiple layers to coat. So you have to work from I find working from the back to the top the best, because that way you get to groom each layer at the right stage. If you work from the top down, you can end up with a patchy coat. So if you work from the neck down to the rump, you end up with a patchy coat. If you work from the rump up to the neck, I find it's much more even, and I can see exactly where I've been and what I need to do. As you can see here, we're just pulling out every other hair that is standing prouder than the rest. We're just trying to get it even. I'm not trying to get the coat down ultra short. I'd rather an even groom than a short groom. If you go too short with this, you can make the coat look uneven and patchy often. So it's important to just take your time and see exactly where you've been, and less is more sometimes. It really is. It can be a very time-consuming process, but I would suggest definitely doing it, because you're giving your cavie the best chance to win. It would be silly to feed it, wash it, prepare it, and look after it all this time and not give it the best chance it can. The final touches are all in the detail, so it's very important to spend a little extra time really looking at the hairs that need to be removed. These are usually around the head. So all the long hairs around the ears, around the eyes, and around the jowl, these all need to be taken out. And it doesn't take a lot of effort. Even these little side whiskers that come out from the side of the head, they're not actual whiskers, they're sort of... And they just upset the profile and the width of the cavie. So I always remove these before a show. Just using a pair of tweezers and gently plucking them out in one straight motion. You see the guinea pig didn't squeal or anything, and we've taken that hair right out. And it just gives the guinea pig a more smooth appearance. So we pluck all of these, we pluck all the hair around the neck and the top of the crown of the head. And again, we're just looking to give it the best outline we can, to set it aside from the other exhibits. You know, we do really need to pay attention to these details, because when you're vying for the top places at a show, this is where a judge is going to look. He's got to find something to split the difference. And quite often, these smaller details in grooming can be the actual difference between winning best in show and just an also ran. So you owe it to yourself and your cavie to really spend some time on these more difficult to groom areas and just giving it the best finish you possibly can. I find it very relaxing doing these grooming sessions, and I can spend many an hour without even realising where the time is gone. It's important to let the coat rest as well. I try not to groom the pig and do these final details in the 4 or 5 days leading up to the show, because it's important the coat rests. You know, it's quite a shock to the coat having hair pulled out of it. So most of the grooming before the show are these final detail touches, or the next part, which is making that coat shine. And for this, you'll need your natural fibre goat's hair brush. And this time, we brush from the neck down to the rump, following the coat direction. We don't want to go against the coat now. We've done all the grooming and removing of the hair. We really need to get that coat shining. And I find the natural fibres have an oily texture to them, which helps make the coat shine, very much like a bird preening, to give a glossy finish. And I do this maybe for 10-15 minutes every day before the show, and the coat, even on boars, becomes very soft and silky. Even the coarsest of coat can become soft. And that is what you need to do to get your pig in the best in show lineup, with the best coat doing its absolute best for you. So fingers crossed you find this useful. Please give a like and share and comment on how you found it, and I'll see you again in the next episode.